Kurtop here, and these are the 100 most important archaeological discoveries of the past century. A creepy discovery under the floor. An ordinary day for Amelia turned into a real investigation. She noticed that one of the floorboards in her house was loose and decided to lift it to find out the reason. However, instead of a simple breakage, she found strange objects under the board, an old coin from 1904 and a small golden book. When she opened the book, she discovered that the pages were unusually thick. Inside, there were old photographs, eerie images of the house, dark shadows in empty rooms, and mysterious portraits. Perhaps the house holds grim secrets from the past, or maybe the photographs have simply aged. However, the discovery seriously frightened Amelia herself. She admitted that since then she has felt anxious and wants to find out what other secrets her house is hiding. The melted steps of the staircase in the Hathor Temple in Dendera raise many questions among archaeologists and researchers. These steps, located in one of the best preserved temples of ancient Egypt, look as if they were exposed to incredibly high temperatures, which could have caused their deformation and partial melting. Unusual bends and sunken areas can be seen on the surface of the steps, which are not typical for the usual wear and tear of stone structures. There are various theories that try to explain this phenomenon. One hypothesis suggests that the steps might have been damaged as a result of some unknown source of extreme heat, such as ritual fires or processes related to ancient technologies. Another theory points to possible construction errors. If the stones for the steps were formed directly on site from a liquid solution, then interrupting the hardening process could have led to an incorrect shape and softness of the material. Scientists are still studying this phenomenon, adding yet another mystery to the rich legacy of ancient Egypt. The Ice Age mammoth carving from the Danube Alps region, Germany, is one of the oldest examples of Ice Age art, dating back to about 35,000 years ago. This miniature figurine is carved from mammoth ivory, which in itself is a testament to the skill and artistic sensitivity of prehistoric people. Discovered in the 1930s, the artifact became an important link in the study of early human art. The uniqueness of this piece lies not only in its age, but also in its level of detail. Notches can be seen on the surface of the figurine, possibly symbolic or decorative, which add mystery to the artifact. They may be 1. Previously, they were used as examples of communication or spiritual beliefs of ancient people. Archaeologists suggest that such figurines could have been used for ritual purposes, serving as hunters' talismans or symbols of luck. The mammoth, symbolizing strength and endurance, probably played an important role in the worldview of primitive tribes. The oldest Masonic artifact, this brass square, is one of the earliest Masonic artifacts in the world. It was found in 1830 in the foundation of Bales Bridge in the Irish city of Limerick. It dates back to 1507, which makes it an important piece of evidence of early Freemasonry. On one side, the words are engraved, "I will strive to live with love and care," and on the other, "upon the level and by the square." These phrases resonate with the key principles of Freemasonry: honesty, justice, and brotherhood. The square and the level are traditional Masonic symbols associated with the righteousness of actions and the equality of people. How this item ended up under the bridge is a mystery. Perhaps it was placed there as a symbolic good luck stone during construction. In any case, this is a rare artifact that gives us an idea of the origins of Masonic traditions as early as the beginning of the 16th century. Amber Bowl. This magnificent amber bowl, which is about 3,270 years old, was found in a large round barrow in Hove, England, during the excavations in 1856. Amber is a material known for its beauty and is associated with the sun and life energy. In ancient times, it was used not only for decoration, but also for ritual purposes. According to researchers, the bowl that was found could have been an item of high status belonging to an important member of society or a chief. Creating such a bowl required exceptional skills, since amber is a fragile material and working with it demands patience and craftsmanship. The bowl that was found indicates that people of that time had access to rare and valuable materials, which also confirms the existence of trade connections and exchanges with other regions. The fact that the bowl was buried together with its owner speaks to its significance for burial rituals or a belief in the afterlife. The oldest runestone in the world. Archaeologists in Norway have made a sensational discovery, possibly the oldest known runestone. Fragments of sandstone with runes carved into them were found in individual graves at the ancient Saviner cemetery. Researchers found that these pieces fit together like a puzzle, forming a single stone with a unique engraving. Runes are ancient letters that were used for writing in Germanic languages before the transition to the Latin alphabet. The origin of runic writing remains a subject of debate, but early alphabets were already in use before 700 AD. Radiocarbon dating of the discovered stone showed that its age ranges from 50 BC to 275 AD, making it the oldest known runic monument. The unique feature of the find is that the inscriptions on the stone are an unusual mix of runes and unknown symbols. The carvings may have been made by different people at various times, and the stone reused multiple times. Researchers believe that it originally served as a memorial marker for one grave, but was later broken and redistributed among other burials. The Book of Kells. The Book of Kells is a medieval manuscript kept in the library of Trinity College and is one of the main attractions of Dublin. This manuscript contains the 4 Gospels in Latin and canon tables written on parchment. The book measures 33 by 25 centimeters and consists of 340 pages. It was created at the end of the 8th and the beginning of the 9th century, and research has shown that it had 4 illustrators. A distinctive feature of the manuscript is that each letter has its own unique design, color, and meaning, like a secret code that has yet to be deciphered. The book got its name from the Abbey of Kells, where it was saved from the Vikings in 814. It is believed that work on it began during the lifetime of St. Columba and continued for 2 centuries after his death. Historians suggest several theories about the origin of this manuscript. According to one of them, it was created on the island of Iona and later transferred to the Abbey of Kells. Another theory states that the writing began on Iona but was completed in Kells. There is also a suggestion that the manuscript was created in England or even in Scotland. Despite the variety of theories, the Book of Kells remains one of the most mysterious and magnificent works of art of the Middle Ages. Seated burial and children's necropolis. In the French city of Dijon, archaeologists have discovered a unique burial of the Gauls that is more than 2,000 years old. The peculiarity of the find is that all the deceased are sitting facing west. This is a rare ritual, known only from a few sites in France and Switzerland. The excavations were carried out in the garden of an old monastery, where archaeologists came across 13 burials. The deceased are sitting with their hands on their torsos and their legs arranged asymmetrically. The burials are dated to the period between 450 and 425 BC. Researchers suggest that these graves may have contained priests, chiefs, or members of the same family. Next to these burials, a children's cemetery from the 1st century AD was found, where 22 infants were buried, many of whom did not live even a year. Some of the children were buried in wooden coffins, as evidenced by the nails that were found. Coins and ceramics were also discovered in the graves, probably as burial offerings. However, part of the cemetery was destroyed due to agricultural work. The reason for the seated burial remains a mystery. One theory is connected to the belief in the afterlife. It is possible that the deceased were supposed to enter the afterlife in a special posture. Other researchers believe that this is part of a spiritual practice. The posture could have symbolized meditation or eternal rest. This is supported by Celtic figurines found in different parts of Europe. New Roman dodecahedron. In England, amateur archaeologists have discovered a unique dodecahedron from the Roman era. This find, made in a farmer's field in Lincolnshire, is a 12-sided metal figure about the size of a grapefruit. It was found during the excavations where Roman coins had previously been discovered thanks to metal detectors. Finding the unusually large and intact dodecahedron surprised the excavation participants. More than 100 similar dodecahedrons have been found in northwestern Europe, dating from the 1st to the 3rd centuries AD. And usually made of bronze, they have holes of different sizes on each face and spikes on the corners. The purpose of these objects still remains a mystery for scientists. There are hypotheses that these could have been dice, mace heads, sling stones, range finders for Roman artillery, or even objects for divination. Traces of the gods. In the Ain Dara temple in northern Syria, in the arid lands, there is a unique archaeological site, the Ain Dara complex, a group of structures surrounding a majestic central temple, which has no known parallel. One of its remarkable features is the giant footprints on the threshold, each up to 1 meter long, clearly indicating their non-human origin. According to local residents, the footprints were left by a deity, and the temple resembles the biblical description of Solomon's temple. The temple, which dates to the Iron Age of the Syro-Hittite kingdoms that emerged after the collapse of the Hittite Empire, around 1180 BC, and lasted until 700 BC, was discovered in 1955. Archaeological excavations have made it possible to study its structure and decorations in more detail. The temple stands on a mound and is surrounded by a gallery. Its foundation is made up of massive basalt blocks. The walls are decorated with intricate carvings depicting geometric patterns and mythical animals, which testifies to the high skill of its creators. The entrance is guarded by lions and sphinxes carved from stone. Nevertheless, it is still unknown to whom exactly the temple was dedicated. There is a suggestion that it might have been dedicated to the goddess Ishtar, but there is no exact information. The giant human footprints not only confirm the connection of the structure with ancient myths and deities, but also emphasize its cultural, religious, and mystical significance. However, in 2018, a huge part of this temple was destroyed by airstrikes. Tunnels that were considered a myth. For the residents of Cusco, this discovery became real proof of ancient legends about underground passages and hidden treasures. Archaeologists Jorge Calero Flores and Mildred Fernandez Palomino reported the discovery of a network of tunnels under the city, connecting the Temple of the Sun and the Sacsayhuaman fortress. According to preliminary data, the tunnels date back to the late 15th and early 16th centuries. The engineering solutions used in their construction are astonishing. The stone walls resemble the famous Inca structures, are resistant to earthquakes, and a complex drainage system prevented flooding. The length of the labyrinth is about 1,750 meters, and the depth reached 2.5 meters. The tunnels have 3 branches. One leads to Calaspuquio, the second passes under the San Cristobal Church, and the third connects to Sacsayhuaman. The purpose of the maze of tunnels remains a mystery. Some researchers suggest that the tunnels were used by priests or military commanders to move around secretly. Others believe that they had ritual significance. Small niches have been found in the walls, probably intended for offerings. Although no gold or artifacts have been found yet, the tunnels themselves are a valuable historical discovery. Modern technologies such as ground-penetrating radar help study them without causing damage. Local residents actively support the research, considering the discovery an important part of their heritage. Lard from the Second World War. For decades after strong storms on the coast of St. Cyrus in Scotland, the sea has periodically washed up pork lard that ended up in the sea due to a shipwreck during the Second World War. Recently, the waves washed ashore 4 more pieces of lard, each of which retained the shape of the barrels in which they were probably stored all these years. These unusual relics became known to the local residents after the cargo ship carrying the lard was sunk by bombs. It is believed that with each new storm, the sunken ship gradually releases part of its cargo, washing fatty blocks ashore. The local residents are familiar with this phenomenon and claim that the lard, despite being covered with a crust of shells, has been well preserved and is suitable for use. During the war, when access to lard was limited, such finds became real treasures, helping people get through difficult times. Lacquered coffin. In 2018, archaeologists in China's Jiangsu province discovered a unique 700-year-old lacquered coffin from the Yuan dynasty. Its bright red surface was perfectly preserved thanks to the multi-layer lacquer coating, which protected the wood from moisture and decay. Lacquered coffins were a symbol of high status in China, and their creation required complex techniques. The lacquer was applied in several layers and then polished to a shine. This method of preservation allowed the coffin to survive for centuries with virtually no damage. The discovery is also important because the Yuan dynasty left relatively few burials, and this coffin can tell us a lot about the burial traditions of that time. They ruled even after death. The Inca had a unique attitude toward their deceased rulers, considering them not simply dead but continuing to live and rule even after death. The mummified rulers were preserved and honored as if they were alive, possessing their own lands and wealth. Amazingly, the estates of such mummies continued to be managed by their servants, and the mummies themselves took part in important rituals and even meetings. It was believed that these rulers were able to give advice and influence the life of society, remaining the eternal masters of their lands. Over time, this created difficulties, as significant territories ended up under the control of the dead, which hindered the distribution of resources and the management of lands among the living. Such influence of the mummified rulers became a challenge for Inca society, especially in conditions of limited resources. The Incas tried to maintain a balance between honoring their ancestors and the needs of the living, which makes their culture unique and deeply symbolic. This phenomenon highlights how closely spiritual and practical life were intertwined among the Incas. The Sistine Chapel of ancient Egypt. Before you is one of the most stunning tombs of ancient Egypt, the burial place of Queen Nefertari, wife of Ramses II. It is already more than 3,200 years old, and it is often called the Sistine Chapel of Egypt because of its incredible beauty. Unlike many other tombs, this one impresses not only with its scale, but also with its bright, almost untouched colors. The walls display scenes from the Book of the Dead, depictions of gods and Nefertari entering the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that such paintings would help the deceased pass the trials and achieve eternal life. The detailing is stunning. Fine lines, intricate patterns, and vibrant colors. All of this makes the tomb a true masterpiece. Unfortunately, many sections of the walls have been damaged by time, but restorers managed to preserve its grandeur. Today, this tomb is considered one of the most beautiful in the Valley of the Queens, and a true window into the world of ancient Egyptian art. A new giant pyramid. In Indonesia, a giant underground pyramid called Gunung Gunung Padang has been discovered, which is older than Stonehenge and the pyramids of Giza. This place is shrouded in mystery and is considered sacred by the local inhabitants of the island of West Java. It is known as Punden Punden Berundag, a stepped pyramid. Archaeological work has only just begun, but it has already shown that Gunung Gunung Padang may be the oldest pyramidal structure in the world, built on top of an extinct volcano before the advent of agriculture. The latest research suggests that there may be chambers inside the hill containing unknown contents. The name Mountain of Enlightenment emphasizes that an ancient civilization may have turned the volcanic hill into the foundation for a pyramid many millennia ago. Radiocarbon dating shows that construction of the structure began around the last ice age, making it over 16,000 years old, and possibly even 27,000 years ago, putting it in the same age range as Göbekli Tepe. Between 2011 and 2015, a group of specialists conducted a comprehensive analysis using drilling and seismic studies. They determined that Gunung Gunung Padang was built in several stages. Within the hill, scientists discovered signs of hidden chambers, some of which reached 15 meters in length and 10 meters in height, confirming the uniqueness and mystery of this ancient structure. A skeleton with an intact brain. Imagine a giant mound covering 45 hectares, which looks like a heart in aerial photographs. It's not called the heart of Western Anatolia for nothing. And now, the most interesting part. For the first time in the history of Turkish archaeology, scientists have discovered well-preserved remains of skin, as well as remnants of a brain. Imagine, brain remnants that are already 3,700 years old. Discoveries of such ancient artifacts are truly incredible. So, who were these people? It was a young guy, about 15 to 18 years old, and a middle-aged man. Apparently, their house was set on fire during the Bronze Age, and they didn't have time to escape. It's frightening to imagine that it was thanks to this fire that their remains were so well preserved. This amazing burial mound was the true capital of its region in ancient times. But around 1700 BC, it was completely destroyed as a result of an attack. And now the main question, how is this possible? How could remnants of brain and skin be preserved for such a long time? Thanks to the extremely high temperatures of the fire, this is truly a unique and rare discovery. Risqué artefact. In the Kanggai Mountains of northern Mongolia, archaeologists made a sensational discovery: a stone ornament in the shape of a human phallus. Yes, you heard that right. This small carved piece of graffiti, 4.3 centimeters long, is the oldest known depiction of a human with sexual characteristics. Believe it or not, its age is estimated to be between 42,400 and 41,900 years, so it dates back to the Upper Paleolithic. Such phallic pendants are something new in Paleolithic history. They indicate that the first hunter-gatherers were already using sexual characteristics as symbols. You can notice indentations on the pendant, which, according to scientists, resemble the male sexual organ. The most interesting thing is that the back of the pendant is smooth, while the front is not. It seems that the pendant was worn around the neck. The surface of the pendant is a bit worn, but it suggests that it was passed down from generation to generation. Why is a bottle of wine 750 milliliters? Why is the volume of a wine bottle 750 milliliters and not 1 liter? There are many theories surrounding this question. Some people believe that this volume is convenient for a European family at lunch. Others associate it with optimal wine storage. Some claim that this is a historically established standard for glassblowers, and some are sure that 750 ml is simply a convenient volume for transportation. However, the real reason lies in the trade calculations of the 19th century. At that time, wine was actively exported from France to England, where the gallon system was used. 1 gallon was equal to about 4.5 liters, and a standard French wine barrel held 225 liters, when divided into bottles of 750 milliliters. Exactly 300 bottles. To simplify trade, it was decided to count batches in this exact volume. 1 gallon made up 6 bottles, and a case was 12. This standard has been preserved to this day. Besides wine, alcohol also played an important role in earlier times. For example, the Sumerians used weak beer with about 2 to 2.5% strength to disinfect water. The earliest evidence of wine was discovered in Georgia and Armenia, making them winemaking's ancestral homelands. Interestingly, in the 1970s, the United States planned to switch to liter bottles, but studies showed that 750 mmol is the ideal volume for wine aging. As a result, this standard became global, retaining its significance even in countries with the metric system. The iconic collection Missa in Agenda Defunctorum from 1733 is a rare artifact from the early 18th century created for conducting requiem masses. This unique collection, used by priests for reading prayers for the deceased, stands out not only for its content, but also for the dark symbolism of its design. The book's binding is decorated with an image of a skull and crossbones, emphasizing its purpose in rituals related to death and remembrance. The collection includes chants and texts of the Latin liturgy that were used for the repose of the souls of the deceased. The skull symbolism on the cover reflects the contemporary view of the transience of existence and a reminder of the inevitability of death, motifs characteristic of the Baroque era. Such books were works of art, symbolizing the mystique and grandeur of Catholic rituals. It is known that bindings with such symbolism were often made specifically for churches or noble families who wanted to emphasize their connection to religious tradition. This collection was probably used in a monastery or chapel, serving as a reminder of the need to pray for the repose of souls. The Temple of the Falcon with a mysterious message. In Berenike, an ancient port city of Egypt, archaeologists discovered an ancient Temple of the Falcon, which puzzled them because of the decapitated birds, unknown deities, and a mysterious inscription. It is forbidden to boil heads here. At the excavation site, which is more than 1,700 years old, 15 decapitated falcons were found on a pedestal and a stone monument depicting 2 unknown gods. Next to the pedestal, they found an iron harpoon 34 centimeters long. In another part of the temple, a stele with a Greek inscription was discovered, which reads, "It is forbidden to boil heads here." It is unclear why the falcons were decapitated. Why was a stele with such an inscription placed in the temple? And why was the harpoon placed near the falcons? The stele depicts 3 deities: Harpocrates from Coptos, a child deity, and two mysterious gods whose exact identities are unknown. One has the head of a falcon, and the other is a goddess wearing a crown with cow horns and a solar disk. It is likely that the beheaded falcons were sacrifices to these gods, and in particular to the god with the falcon head. Remains of fish, mammals, and eggshells were also found in the temple. The temple shows that ancient religious practices persisted even after the arrival of Christianity. At that time, Christianity was the state religion of the Roman Empire. The beheaded falcons and the ban on boiling heads raise many questions about the cults and beliefs in Berenice. Zombie spiders. While exploring caves in Northern Ireland, scientists discovered a new species of fungus capable of taking over spiders and controlling their behavior. This fungus works on the same principle as zombie fungi, known in tropical forests, forcing infected insects to spread its spores. The research was conducted by a team led by Dr. Harry Evans, with the participation of specialists from the Natural History Museum of Denmark and the Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew. The new species was named Gibellula attenboroughii in honor of Sir David Attenborough. The analysis showed that it parasitizes orb weaver spiders, forcing them to change their usual behavior. The researchers noticed that infected spiders left the cave walls and moved to the ceiling, which is not typical for these species. It is assumed that the fungus controls the victim's nervous system, directing it to places favorable for the spread of spores. Amethyst vase. This magnificent amethyst vase dates back to approximately the 8th century BC and belongs to the Neo-Assyrian period. Found in a private collection, it is an amazing example of the craftsmanship of ancient artisans working with semi-precious stones. Amethyst was highly valued for its rarity and beauty. Its deep purple color was associated with luxury and was considered a symbol of power and spirituality. Amethyst items in those times were created with great effort, as working with such a hard stone required a high level of skill and special tools. It is likely that this vase was part of a set of ritual objects, or was used to store valuables, possibly incense or oils. The fine polishing and proportional shape indicate that the item was intended for noble owners, such as royal families or high-ranking officials. The Neo-Assyrian civilization was one of the most powerful in ancient Rome, known for its art, architecture, and exquisite household items. People of an unknown civilization. In the rainforests of Brazil, in the state of Rondônia, archaeologists captured rare footage of people from the isolated Masako tribe. This tribe, discovered in the 1990s, strictly avoids contact with the outside world and carefully guards its land by setting deadly traps made of wooden spikes. These spikes are so strong that they can puncture tractor tires. The Masako are one of 28 tribes in the Amazon that are completely cut off from civilization. To study them without intrusion, scientists installed cameras in the jungle. Researcher Al Algezer has been observing the tribe since 1992. Thanks to his work, deforestation on their territory was stopped. Early attempts to contact isolated peoples often ended tragically due to outbreaks of disease. That's why the Masako rejected any offerings, tools, utensils, weapons. They would leave only sharp spikes at meeting places, warning outsiders that intrusion was not welcome. After contact ceased and their lands were protected, the tribe's population increased. In the 1990s, about 90 people lived here. Now there are 200 to 250. Scientists have mapped their trails and camps and recorded their nomadic farming techniques using satellites. The tribe burns the savanna and then moves there during the rainy season. Masako is different from other tribes because of their long bows, up to 3 meters in length. Anthropologists still don't understand how they shoot them. Their language is unique and not understood even by other indigenous peoples. Researchers note that the population of Masako is growing, which means sooner or later they will come into contact with civilization. But history shows that such contacts rarely end well. Lost history. A long-awaited fragment of the famous Dead Sea Scrolls, dating back 2,700 years, was recently found. These scrolls are parts of ancient manuscripts discovered near the Dead Sea between 1946 and 1956, including 972 documents in various ancient languages. A third of them contain biblical texts, while the rest are non-biblical, relating to the Second Temple period. Interestingly, one of the three rare fragments dated to the period of the First Temple, which was considered lost, was discovered in the United States in the state of Montana. The owner of this ancient artifact said that his mother bought the papyrus as a souvenir in Jerusalem in 1965. This fragment is of interest to scholars because it contains only 4 lines in ancient Hebrew, beginning with the words, "Send to Ishmael." Researchers suggest that this was an instruction for the recipient. It is Ishmael, who, in the biblical story, is associated with being the firstborn of Abraham and his maidservant Hagar, and the name Ishmael is fairly popular. After a detailed analysis, experts confirmed the authenticity of the scroll and its age. Now, this historical artifact is in Israel, with the Israel Antiquities Authority. However, many similar scrolls are still hidden in private collections around the world. A fragment of the oldest book was studied by Teresa Zamet-Lupi, a restorer from Gradsky University. She examined a papyrus dated to the 3rd century BC and discovered traces of binding on it. Just think, she held in her hands a page from a book that is more than 2,000 years old. This unique fragment was discovered in 1902 next to a mummy, and this find could rewrite the entire history of books because it is 400 years older than the oldest books known to us. To this day, it is believed that the oldest books were created between 150 and 250 AD, and some of them can be seen in the British Library, in London, and the Chester Beatty Library in Dublin. Scientists are sure that similar relics may be hidden in other museums. They just haven't been discovered yet. After all, papyrus was a fairly accessible writing material, and it was widely used. This amazing fragment, about 15 by 20 centimeters in size, was found in the Egyptian necropolis of Hybei. It is part of a collection of 52 papyri. Today we have a unique opportunity to learn the story that hides behind every symbol on these ancient pages. A mysterious creature in the Arctic. Now we're going on an amazing adventure to the very heart of the Arctic, an icy desert that holds many secrets. And today one of those secrets will be revealed to us. Meet the little monster. And although at first glance the word monster brings to mind images of giant scary creatures, our hero is not like that. This monster is not about size, but about its uniqueness. Its size is surprisingly modest, but it's the uniqueness that makes it a real monster. This super interesting little creature was discovered by the American geologist James Dwight Dana back in the 19th century. He was so amazed that he called it a monstrel. And here's the most surprising part. Modern scientists encountered the same creature in 2014. You might think it's something similar to a shrimp. That's right, but its size is only a few millimeters. Our little monster has a flat head with antennae, 4 pairs of legs, and just 1 eye. Moreover, it has a few more amazing features that make it even more unique. But what really amazed us was that this microcyclops was found not as a larva, but as an adult creature. You see, our little monster, despite its size, is important for the ecosystem of our planet. This flat-headed monster confirmed that the eternal ice of the Arctic hides thousands of secrets. And this icy desert is like a giant refrigerator, preserving all these secrets in perfect condition. The time capsule of the Theopetra cave. Just think, 130,000 years ago, people had already chosen this cave as their home. These are the conclusions archaeologists have made while studying the Theopetra cave in the heart of Greece at the foot of Meteora. This amazing piece of land was formed between 137 and 65 million years ago. People found a cozy place to live in this cave, and its interior turned out to be exceptionally spacious, about 500 square meters. And what is especially nice is that the cave is so bright thanks to its huge entrance. The exploration of the cave began in 1987 and lasted for 20 years under the careful guidance of Dr. Nina Kiparisia Apostoliki. Originally, the cave served as a shelter for the sheep of local shepherds, but later it became a key site for archaeologists throughout Greece. And here's an interesting fact. Theopetra is the only cave in Greece where a clear record of human habitation can be seen, from the Paleolithic to the Neolithic. Such a scientific window into the past is truly rare. The mysterious grave, 157. During the excavations in the eastern part of Croatia, in the settlement of Rachesa, archaeologists discovered a mysterious medieval burial. which was named Grave 157. It attracted attention because of its unusual placement and frightening ritual features. The tomb was located under the floor of an ancient church along the southern wall, and massive stones were placed on the remains of the deceased, which, according to researchers, might have been put there specifically to prevent his possible resurrection. This fact, as well as the unusual position of the body, led to the assumption that the burial was connected to a belief in vampires. Anthropological analysis showed that the remains belonged to a man aged 40 to 50 who performed hard physical labor during his lifetime. However, the most mysterious thing is the deliberate damage to the skeleton. His torso was facing down, and his head was separated from his body. Such unusual burial practices have previously been found in Europe and are often associated with the fear of the dead who might come back to life. The historical context also adds special significance to the discovery. The settlement of Archaeological existed from the 13th to the 16th century and initially belonged to the Templars, then to the Order of Hospitallers, and later passed into the hands of the local nobility. Archaeologists have discovered 181 burials here over 15 years. In some graves, traces of unusual burial rituals were found, including decapitated bodies and dislocated bones, which indicate ancient superstitions and fears. Analysis of historical sources confirms that even after the adoption of Christianity in Slavic countries, belief in evil forces continued to persist. 9 commandments out of 10. The oldest known stone tablet with 9 out of 10 commandments carved on it is being prepared for auction. Experts suggest that the price could reach $1 to $2 million. The marble tablet dates back to between 300 and 500 AD and was discovered in 1913 during the construction of a railway on the southern coast of modern Israel, near places where early synagogues, mosques, and churches were located. The marble tablet, about 2 feet tall and weighing 115 pounds, contains 20 lines of text in Paleo-Hebrew. It first appeared on the market in 2016 and was sold for $850,000. For a long time after its discovery, the importance of the tablet remained unclear. At one point, it was even used as a tile at the entrance to a house, which caused some of the letters to become worn. In 1943, archaeologist U. Kaplan acquired the tablet and identified it as a Samaritan Decalogue, created by the Samaritans, an ancient religious group whose beliefs were based on the Old Testament but differed from Judaism. The text on the tablet almost completely matches the biblical commandments, which are familiar to both Christians and Jews. However, one of the commandments, "Do not take the Lord's name in vain," is missing. Instead, there is an instruction to worship on Mount Gerizim, which reflects the religious beliefs of the Samaritans. New mysteries of Egyptian burial practices. For the first time, scientists have conducted a detailed analysis of the pink and white paste used to seal coffins in ancient Egypt. The study showed that these substances had different compositions and served different functions. One of the first samples studied was the coffin of Pakepu, a priest and guardian of the Theban necropolis in Thebes, who was buried about 2,700 years ago. His wooden coffin, kept at the Fitzwilliam Museum of the University of Cambridge, consisted of 2 parts, an inner and an intermediate coffin, sealed with special compounds. Analysis showed that the pink paste was used to fill structural gaps, while the white one served as a base for painting. Interestingly, a layer resembling papier-mâché was found in the inner coffin, a multi-layered composition of linen and plaster, similar to those used for burial masks and burial coverings. The main component of both pastes was calcite, obtained by grinding limestone. However, a purer material was used in the inner coffin, which confirms the special attention given to the structure that was in direct contact with the body. The pink paste, containing iron impurities, was coarser and served technical purposes. Its grainy structure helped prevent shrinkage during drying. The variety of joints indicates that different craftsmen worked on the coffin, each applying their own method. Ritual during a change of power. Archaeological excavations at the Yucanal site in northern Guatemala have uncovered traces of an ancient ritual that may have symbolized the public replacement of the old Maya regime. In the upper part of the temple pyramid, charred human bones and royal ornaments were found. These artifacts may indicate special burial rites or ceremonies. Analysis showed that the bones belong to at least 4 adults, 3 of whom have been identified as men. One of the skeletons was exposed to high temperatures exceeding 800 degrees. This study confirms that the remains found could have belonged to members of the royal family, who were originally buried elsewhere, and centuries later were burned as part of a ritual connected to their transfer to the pyramid. Among the items found were 1,500 fragments of various ornaments, pendants, beads, plates, and mosaics made of green stone, obsidian objects, and blades. 10,000 beads made from seashells, as well as pendants made from mammal teeth. Fragments of a mosaic funerary mask made of green stone were also discovered, which is typical for royal burials from that period. Radiocarbon analysis indicates that the deaths of the people occurred about 100 years before the burning. This confirms the theory that the burial could have been part of a ritual, marking the symbolic and literal destruction of the previous dynasty of the line of Konvitsnal. This could have been a highly ceremonial event associated with a change in the political order in the region. Celtic village and Roman settlement. An archaeological breakthrough in Munich. On the northern outskirts of this German metropolis, scientists stumbled upon an astonishing discovery: the remains of an ancient Celtic village dating back 2,500 years and traces of Roman settlers. This village, flourishing during the La Tène period of Celtic civilization, was home to our ancestors up until the first millennium AD. And now, while excavating for a new residential area, archaeologists have discovered houses from that era whose outlines we see as mysterious circles on the ground. At the very center of the settlement stood an impressive building, surrounded by wooden structures resembling colonnades, possibly a gathering place for the local community. Archaeologists also found different types of dwellings and evidence that the inhabitants lived in half-timbered houses. The amazing Turi cemeteries, with evidence from Celtic and Roman times, show us that this area was inhabited and prosperous for many centuries. Every ceramic plate, jug with an intact handle, drinking vessel made of soapstone, and even the rare sickle from the burials tell the story of days long past. The frozen Scythian boot. This boot is a genuine artifact from the past, over 2,300 years old. It was discovered in an Altai Mountains burial mound, where permafrost kept it perfectly preserved. This is Scythian footwear, made of leather and decorated with intricate patterns, and the sole is covered with bright beads. Such decoration indicates the high status of the owner. Most likely, this was part of the attire of a noble Scythian, or even a noble Scythian woman. The Scythians were famous not only for their martial skills, but also for their ability to make things that could pass for works of art. Their clothing was not only practical, but also incredibly beautiful. Interestingly, the sole of the boot is also decorated. Perhaps it was a ritual element or simply a desire to look stylish even after death. Skeleton from different eras. In Belgium, archaeologists found an unusual skeleton made up of bones from 5 people who lived several thousand years apart. The remains were discovered at a Roman-era cremation cemetery in Pomerol, near the border with France. As it turned out, this strange individual is 2,500 years older than the Roman period. Moreover, radiocarbon analysis showed that the bones date back to the Neolithic period, that is, between 7,000 and 3,000 BC. Excavations of this cemetery began back in the 1970s. And among the 76 cremation burials, scientists discovered an unusual burial, a skeleton in the fetal position. According to initial assumptions, it was Roman, since a Roman-type bone pin was found next to the skull. However, a detailed analysis in 2019 led to unexpected conclusions. The skeleton was assembled from bones belonging to different people, and the pin itself dates to around AD 69 to 210. Scientists suggest that the Romans may have accidentally disturbed a Neolithic burial, adding the skull and the pin to complete the composition. However, it remains a mystery why and how the different remains ended up being assembled together. In the ancient oasis of Khaybar in the Saudi Arabian desert, scientists discovered a fortress wall more than 4,000 years old. This gigantic structure is 14.5 kilometers long and 5 meters high, with about 180 bastions, of which only 6 kilometers of the wall and 74 bastions have survived to this day. Radiocarbon analysis of charcoal remains from the excavation site indicates a period between 2,250 and 1,950 BC pottery. Remains were found on the wall, which confirms its antiquity. Archaeologists believe that this wall was used for several centuries before it was abandoned. The wall was presumably used for protection against nomad raids, marking territorial boundaries and flood defense. This indicates a transition of the local population to a sedentary lifestyle. The construction of such a gigantic wall required significant resources. About 250 people worked on it for 4 years, using 164,000 cubic meters of stone and brick. The discovery of the wall was made possible thanks to satellite images, which opens new horizons for archaeological research. The mysterious drink in the jug. In China, the oldest distilled alcohol, over 3,000 years old, has been found. This rare liquid, discovered in a bronze vessel from the Shang dynasty, proves that distillation technology appeared in China much earlier than previously thought. The owl-shaped vessel was found in 2010 in tomb M257 in Doxingzhuang, Shandong province. Due to corrosion, it could not be opened immediately. Only in 2024, after careful restoration, were researchers able to look inside. To their surprise, the vessel contained a clear liquid that was preserved thanks to the tight sealing. Analysis at the Shandong University laboratory confirmed that it was distilled liquor. It did not contain sugars or organic acids typical of fermented wine, but had a neutral pH of 5.8. This distinguishes it from previously unknown alcoholic beverages of the Neolithic era and the Zhou dynasty. The oldest map of the world has been deciphered. The British Museum has revealed the secret of one of the oldest maps of the world, a clay tablet from Babylon, created about 3,000 years ago. The so-called Imago Mundi, found in the city of Abu Haba, Separ, in Iraq, has been kept in the museum's collection since 1882. The tablet depicts a simplified version of the entire world as imagined by the people of Mesopotamia. At the center is a rectangle representing the Euphrates River, surrounded by circles and rectangles that indicate cities, including Babylon. Everything is surrounded by the Bitter River, the salty waters of the Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean Sea. According to cuneiform specialist Irving Finkel, this is a schematic representation of the space where people lived and died, and beyond it, according to the tablet, there were 8 distant regions. The text in Akkadian, written above the map and on the reverse side, tells about the creation of the world and also retells one of the versions of the story of the Great Flood. According to the text, around 1800 BC, the god commanded King Utnapishtim to build an ark, the remains of which supposedly stayed beyond the Bitter River on the slope of a mountain. The missing fragment of the tablet, discovered in 1995, helped scientists to decipher this story more accurately. In addition, the Babylonian god Marduk is mentioned, as well as fantastic creatures like the Scorpion Man and the lion-headed bird Anzu, which confirms the rich mythological world of the Babylonians. The oldest hairstyle. This is an amazing discovery. A preserved hairstyle about 3,300 years old, found on the head of an ancient Egyptian. The intricate braids are striking in their complexity and excellent preservation. In ancient Egypt, hairstyles were of great importance and were often used to express status, age, and social position. Hair care included the use of oils and aromatic products, which also enhanced their appearance and helped preserve them. Preserved details such as braids allow scientists to better understand how important appearance was to the ancient Egyptians and what skill was required to create such hairstyles. A creepy artifact in the garden. An ordinary walk with a metal detector turned into a creepy discovery. A California resident accidentally discovered a mysterious chest buried in a friend's garden. At first, he expected to find only small items like coins or bottle caps, but instead he came across a heavy metal box covered with strange symbols. When opening the chest, the men expected to find something valuable, but inside there was only dirt and a few plastic flowers. The main concern was caused by the SS emblem, a symbol of Nazi Germany. According to some theories, the chest could have been used by World War II soldiers to transport trophies. Despite the many theories, the origin of the chest remains a mystery. Who buried it and why? Why is there only trash inside? Maybe historians can uncover this discovery's secret. A matrix for making golden images. In the central part of Falster Island, located in the southeast of Denmark, an enthusiast with a metal detector made an incredible discovery that could rewrite not only the history of the region, but also shed light on a little-known page of Danish history. Leonard Larsen, walking in the rain in search of artifacts, heard a faint signal from his device. After digging up the ground, he discovered a small, unusual object, a matrix for making golden images, which were presumably used in cult rituals as offerings to the gods. According to archaeologists from the Lolland Falster Museum, this find may be connected to an ancient center of power or religious activity. The matrix, measuring only 2 samim, dates back to between 500 and 700 AD, a time before the Viking Age began. Such artifacts are incredibly rare. Only 28 similar matrices have been found in Scandinavia, and none south of the Baltic Sea. The matrix from Falster depicts a person in elaborate clothing, standing with their arms down and palms facing outward. This gesture is found in both pre-Christian and Christian cultures and symbolizes either submission or revelation. The details of the depiction remain a mystery. It is still unknown whether the matrix depicts a man or a woman. It is possible that this is a figure of a king expressing devotion to a deity, or conversely, a god appearing to a human. Excavations in a powder keg. Archaeologists have discovered Paleolithic sites and artifacts about 1.5 million years old in the desert in western Iraq. Among the finds are hand axes and stone tools, shedding light on the early history of the region and ancient human activity. The research was conducted in the Al-Shabaka area, where geoarchaeologist Ella Ekbers and her team studied ancient soil layers and traces of human activity. They identified 7 sites in an area of 10 by 20 kilometers, as well as more than 850 artifacts, including early Paleolithic stone axes. There used to be a large lake here, which left behind a dried-up riverbed. Ancient people probably used this region for hunting and making tools. Scientists believe that further research will help us better understand how the landscape changed and which groups of people inhabited it in ancient times. Iraqi students who studied geoarchaeology in the Paleolithic period also took part in the project. Despite the unstable political situation, the work went smoothly without any incidents. In the future, Ekbers plans to expand the research to reconstruct climate changes and early human activity in the region. A ball of yarn. During the excavation of an ancient Bronze Age settlement in England, known as Britain's Pompeii, 3 balls of yarn, each about 3,000 years old, were found. They were discovered in underground houses built on marshy land. One of the balls was charred, which raises the question of how it could withstand fire without being damaged. The yarn's composition is still unknown because the artifacts are too fragile. The lack of information about the composition of the yarn causes debates among scientists, especially when it comes to materials like wool or plant fibers. It is assumed that the discovered balls could have been made from flax or nettle. All this suggests that the history of knitting and the use of textile materials in ancient times remains little studied and full of mysteries. Archaeologists are still trying to determine the significance of these wooden textile items, many of which may have been lost or damaged as a result of the fire that destroyed the settlement. This makes the task of reconstructing the historical context even more difficult. The sculpture of the winged deity. In modern-day Iraq, archaeologists made an amazing discovery: a statue of the winged deity Lamassu. Despite the centuries that have passed and its majestic size, the sculpture has remained almost intact. This is a 2,700-year-old alabaster monument representing Lamassu, a deity with a human head, the body of a bull or lion, and bird wings, which had lost its head. However, it has been restored. The head is already on display at the Iraq Museum in Baghdad. Customs officers confiscated it from smugglers in the 1990s. French archaeologist Pascal Bottara-Delaine, who led the excavation, noted the importance of his discovery, comparing its size to the monuments of Egypt and Cambodia. The statue weighs 18 tons, and its dimensions are 3.8 by 3.9 meters. This grand centuries-old artifact once stood at the entrance to the ancient city of Dur-Sharrukin. It is known that it was ordered to be installed during the reign of King Sargon II to protect the capital of Assyria. An interesting fact, the statue was mentioned in 19th century documents, but then went unnoticed by scholars for many years. The residents of the local village of Khorsabad eventually hid the remaining part of the statue to protect it from being plundered. Pyramid of an ancient civilization. The Norte Chico culture, also known as Caral Supe, is considered one of the oldest and most advanced civilizations of the Andes. It existed about 5,000 years ago and achieved significant advancements in architecture, agriculture, and social organization. Recently, archaeologists discovered a pyramid structure about a kilometer from the sacred city of Caral Supe in the Supe Valley, Peru. The structure is a quadrangular building with a wide staircase leading to the top. Its walls are decorated with massive vertical stones called huancas, which may have had not only a structural but also a ritual significance. In addition to the pyramid, researchers found 12 public and ceremonial buildings located around the central square, which covers almost 39 hectares. This indicates the existence of a small urban center with administrative and religious functions. 3 platforms have been identified in the pyramid, which indicates a complex architectural tradition of the Caral civilization. At the Chupa Chupatzigaro site, archaeologists also discovered a unique geoglyph made in the Sechin style. It depicts a human profile and is probably associated with rituals reflecting access to the region's marine and agricultural resources. The Mummy of Hannah Beswick. The fear of being buried alive is not just a myth or a legend. Taphophobia, or the fear of premature burial, troubled the minds of many famous people such as Chopin and Gogol. However, the story of Hannah Beswick, a resident of Failsworth in the 18th century, is particularly striking. Hannah was shocked by the incident with her brother John, who narrowly escaped being buried alive. He was found in a cataleptic state during his own funeral. This incident affected Hannah so much that she took unusual measures to protect herself from a similar fate. She turned to Dr. Charles White to make sure he would confirm her actual death before burial. Dr. White, known for his interest in pathological anatomy, made the unusual decision to embalm Hannah's body. He removed all the internal organs and replaced them with a preserving mixture. In this way, he ensured that Hannah would not come back to life in the coffin. However, after Hannah's death in 1758, her body was not buried. Rumor had it that Dr. White used the money left for the funeral for his own purposes. Hannah's body was kept for a long time in an unusual container, the case of a large wall clock, and was later transferred to the Manchester Museum of Natural History. It was only more than 100 years after her death, in 1868, that Hannah Bestwick was officially declared dead and buried in the Manchester Cemetery. Interestingly, after her burial, many people claim to have seen her ghost, but it never harmed anyone. Dog sacrifice archaeologists have found evidence of dog sacrifices near the Wolsong Palace, which was a royal residence of Silla in present-day Gyeongju, South Korea. Silla was one of the 3 kingdoms of Korea, existing from 57 BC to 935 AD. The city of Seorabyol, now Gyeongju, was the capital, where a crescent-shaped palace fortress complex was built. Previously, human and animal remains were found at the main entrance of the palace, which were likely used in rituals. A recent expedition found a circular structure on the edge of the ancient settlement southwest of the palace. Inside, archaeologists found the bones of 2 dogs arranged symmetrically, as well as a knife, a wooden comb, shark teeth, and crystal necklaces placed in a wooden box. Analysis of the artifacts showed that the find dates back to the 3rd century BC. Traces of fire around the site suggest that the place may have been burned after a ritual. At the time, the region belonged to the Jinhan Confederacy, which preceded the Silla Kingdom. A book with a surprise, a Bible with a secret mechanism for a firearm, is a unique combination of religious text and the art of weaponry. This unusual artifact was made for the Venetian Doge Francesco Morosini in the 17th century. The secret mechanism allowed a miniature firearm device to be hidden inside the book, and the silk bookmark served as the trigger. It's hard to say whether Morosini used this Bible for its intended purpose, but he was known for his sharp mind and caution, which may have contributed to his long life. The Doge lived to the age of 74, which was quite a respectable age for that time. This Bible combined the engineering craftsmanship of the era and shows how powerful people of that time sought to combine means of self-defense with everyday objects. How the first paper money appeared. Long ago, in the times of the ancient Phoenicians, trade was a complicated matter. To simplify the exchange of goods, they came up with the idea of using coins as a universal means of exchange. However, coins were heavy, and slaves carried them using special handles. Then the Chinese came onto the scene with a revolutionary idea. Around the 1st century BC, they invented leather banknotes. They were made from the skin of white deer and marked with special signs. They could be used for purchases anywhere in the empire, and refusing to accept them could cost you your life. These leather notes became the forerunners of the paper bills we know today. Around the 800s, the Chinese decided to try creating paper money using the technique of xylography. This is a method of wood engraving and printing on paper. But this flying money, as it was called, was not immediately taken seriously, since a paper bill could easily be blown away by a gust of wind. Initially, this paper money was used as guarantees for debt obligations, but over time, they became a full-fledged means of payment. Paper money made trade much more convenient. Merchants no longer had to carry heavy coins, and the metal could be used for other important needs. This new flying money was more like checks and was used for large transactions. In just a few decades, paper money went from being a credit certificate to a full-fledged means of payment, becoming what we call paper money today. Europe at that time was still immersed in the Middle Ages, but the Chinese idea was so groundbreaking that it spread all over the world. And so, in 1601, Sweden became the first European country to print and put paper money into circulation. That's how the history of paper money began, which we know and use today. The mysterious house on the ancient tapestry. The Bayeux Tapestry is one of the most famous medieval works of art, illustrating the Norman conquest of England in 1066. However, it still remains a historical mystery. New research has helped to reveal yet another secret connected with this unique monument. The tapestry, 68.3 meters long, depicts key events leading up to the Battle of Hastings, including the murder of the last Anglo-Saxon king, Harold II, by the army of Duke William. Archaeologists have confirmed that one of the places shown on the tapestry really existed, Harold's residence in Bosham, England. Using modern technology, researchers studied the structures beneath a 17th century building which was presumably built on the site of the palace. Radar scanning and analysis of old excavations made it possible to identify the remains of 2 medieval buildings and an important find, a toilet, which indicates the status of an elite residence. Harold owned several estates, but Bosham was probably his favorite. The palace had moats, granaries, storage rooms, kitchens, and even quarters for servants. This discovery helps reconstruct what life was like for the Anglo-Saxon nobility and confirms that the Bayeux Tapestry is not just a work of art, but a valuable historical source. The origin of all things. The clay sculpture of the seated mother goddess from Balochistan, Pakistan, dates back to the Bronze Age and is estimated to be from around 2500 to 2000 BCE. This artifact, measuring only 8.6 centimeter by 2.9 centimeters, is kept in the collection of the Metropolitan Museum in New York. The sculpture depicts the mother goddess, a symbol of fertility and motherhood. A distinctive feature is the detailed hairstyle made of wavy locks, which may symbolize life force and protection. Large breasts and hips emphasize the cult of the feminine principle. This was common in ancient cultures associated with agriculture. Of particular interest is the similarity of this sculpture to similar artifacts found in other regions, such as Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley. There is a suggestion that the sculpture had a ritual purpose. It was probably used in ceremonies related to the fertility of the land and women. A more mystical interpretation suggests a connection with ancient cosmic cults, where the figure could have symbolized the link between celestial and earthly forces, acting as a mediator between worlds. Researchers have deciphered the Voynich manuscript. The Voynich manuscript has been intriguing scientists and cryptographers for more than 600 years. This document, filled with encrypted texts and unusual illustrations, gives rise to many hypotheses ranging from magical spells to obscene texts. But researchers from Macquarie University have concluded that the content of the manuscript is not only decent, but also contains information that, in the early 15th century, was not meant for everyone. Dr. Keegan Brewer, the lead author of the study, claims that the manuscript is a medieval guide to gynecology, including information about sex, contraception, and the treatment of gynecological diseases. The encrypted nature of the text suggests that access to this information was intentionally restricted for a certain group of female readers, which is a vivid example of gender censorship. The manuscript contains numerous illustrations depicting plants, animals, and people, but the researchers were particularly interested in the drawings of naked women. The manuscript features naked women pointing to their genitals. These images clearly suggest a gynecological focus of the text. Women's secrets, as women's health was called in the Middle Ages, were subject to strict censorship despite being actively studied. The patriarchal culture of that era feared the female body and its functions, which was reflected in the medical texts of the time. One of the largest and most mysterious illustrations, known as the rosettes, may symbolize the commonly accepted views on sex and contraception of that time. According to the beliefs of that time, the uterus consisted of 7 chambers and the vagina had 2 openings. Perhaps the 9 circles in the illustration symbolize these anatomical details. Thus, the Voynich manuscript may not simply be a collection of meaningless symbols or a joke, as some have suggested, but an important historical document revealing approaches to women's health in medieval Europe. The Yakutian lion mummy. In November 2024, Russian polar paleontologists completed the study of a unique find, the mummy of a Homotherium cub that had lain in the Yakutian permafrost for about 35,000 years. This is one of the rarest specimens of ancient predators that dominated vast territories from North America to Africa for millions of years. Homotheriums were powerful predators, competing with lions, saber-toothed tigers, and even hyenas. They hunted in packs, and their fangs, although shorter than those of smilodons, were thicker and stronger, allowing them to pierce the hides of large animals, such as young mammoths. Unlike the solitary ambush-hunting smilodons, Homotheriums preferred to hunt by chasing their prey, like wolves. Their powerful paws and well-developed chest made them enduring pursuers. Discoveries from Yakutia allowed scientists to study the appearance of a cub in detail. At just 3 weeks old, it already had a massive neck, a broad muzzle, and paws that resembled skis, perfect for moving through the snow. A comparison with a modern lion cub showed that Homotherium was more stocky and muscular. Despite their adaptations, Homotherium became extinct about 10,000 years ago. Their specialized hunting strategy proved ineffective in the conditions of melting glaciers and competition with primitive humans. The Dinosaur Road. At the Dewars Farm Quarry in Oxfordshire, United Kingdom, scientists uncovered about 200 dinosaur tracks left more than 166 million years ago. An international team from the universities of Oxford and Birmingham studied this site in June 2024, trying to understand exactly how ancient reptiles moved and interacted with each other. 5 main tracks, combined into a kind of dino trail, attracted special interest. 4 of them belonged to large herbivorous sauropods, including Cetiosaurus, a relative of Diplodocus, which could reach up to 18 meters in length. Another trail was left by a roughly 9-meter-long Megalosaurus, a formidable predator with 3-toed clawed feet. In one area, the tracks of a herbivore and a predator crossed in the mud, giving a unique opportunity to find out whether their paths could have crossed not only in time, but also in space. Paleontologists note the excellent condition of the fossilized tracks. The impressions show deformations of the ground under the weight of the feet. This makes it possible to estimate the size of the dinosaurs and to reconstruct the conditions of the ancient lagoon, where traces of burrows, shells, and plant remains were found. To capture all the details, the researchers took 20,000 photographs and created 3D models using drones. A metal door inside the rock. Since the beginning of the 21st century, numerous stories and rumors have surrounded the construction of the Baikal-Amur main line in Russia, some of which surprisingly have a real basis. During the active work on this railway, workers encountered anomalies and paranormal phenomena, causing many to call the main line ghostly. Among these stories, a special place is given to the tale of the railway ghost, a train passing by without a sound, witnessed by both construction workers and local residents. According to scientists, the origin of these stories may be connected to events in the 1940s, when during an uprising, prisoners hijacked a steam locomotive in an attempt to escape. Mysteries have not spared the BAM tunnels either, especially the Severomoisky tunnel, whose construction lasted more than 25 years due to unexpected surprises that pose new challenges for the builders. The mysteries associated with these structures, including the story of the white shaman who foretells disasters, only add to the aura of mystique surrounding the railway. At every step, the builders faced new obstacles that required immediate solutions. One of the most intriguing moments was the discovery of a metal door in one of the tunnel sections, after an underground spring broke through, which led to the death of 30 people. The door, which became a real mystery, remained an unsolved secret, just like the strange sounds coming from underground that resembled knocking. Attempts to explain these phenomena range from assumptions about a high concentration of radon gas, which can cause auditory hallucinations, to stories about evil forces dwelling in the depths of the tunnel. Adding further intrigue is the Devil's Bridge, a part of the same main line, famous for its mysteries and myths. Despite all the technical and mystical challenges, the Severomoisky tunnels and the Devil's Bridge remain the most important structures of the BAM, and the stories associated with them continue to captivate the minds of both experts and travelers. Answers to many questions have yet to be found, and each new mystery only deepens the enigma of these places. Real fragments of the Book of the Dead. In the 19th century, Sir Thomas Phillips, a British collector, dreamed of owning every book on the planet. He gathered a collection of 60,000 manuscripts and 50,000 books. Among them were 19 fragments of the Book of the Dead. For many years, his heirs looted and sold off the library at auctions. In the 1970s, these relics passed to Hans Klaus, a well-known book dealer from New York. In 1983, Klaus and his wife handed over the fragments to the Getty Museum in Los Angeles, where they remained hidden from the world for many years. Only recently did the museum decide to show the public 7 fragments of these artifacts. The Book of the Dead is an unusual book. It is a collection of 200 prayers and spells intended to help the souls of the deceased on their journey through the afterlife. It was a kind of ancient guidebook for the soul. Despite its name, the ancient Egyptians paid more attention to living life, trying to overcome their fears of death. The goal of the deceased was to reach a paradise that resembled their native Egypt, and to unite with the deities, taking part in the eternal cycle of rebirth. Only the upper classes of society could afford to have a Book of the Dead with personalized spells. At the exhibition, visitors could see scrolls that belonged to temple priests named Aset and Ankheseneset, as well as strips of linen with spells for mummification. Special attention is drawn to the scene from the Hall of Judgment, where the scales decide the fate of the deceased. If the heart of the deceased is light, it goes to paradise. If it is heavy, eternal oblivion awaits. The African continent is splitting. Scientists have found that Africa will split into 2 continents much faster than previously thought. In 2005, a 56.5-kilometer-long crack appeared in the Ethiopian desert, which continues to widen at a rate of 1.5 centimeters per year. This is part of a large-scale process associated with the East African Rift Valley, a giant fault stretching 3,200 kilometers that formed 22 million years ago. It was once thought Africa would split apart in tens of millions of years, but Professor Ken McDonald from the University of California predicts that this will happen in just 1.5 million years. As a result, the Indian Ocean will flood East Africa, forming a new continent that will include Somalia, Kenya, Tanzania, and half of Ethiopia. The Great Lakes of Africa, which contain 25% of the Earth's fresh water, were formed precisely because of the tectonic rift. According to former NASA consultant Alexander Dotton, These processes are ongoing, and over time, East Africa will completely separate, forming a new ocean. Modern satellite data and seismic scanning confirm that volcanic activity in the region is increasing. In 2018, heavy rains led to the formation of new faults in Kenya, and local residents felt underground tremors. Experts also believe that Madagascar will eventually split into two islands. Although these changes are not noticeable on the scale of a human lifetime, earthquakes and volcanic eruptions will become more frequent, marking the birth of a new continent. A Babylonian schoolboy's letter, a tablet written by Edinson for his mother Zenu in the city of Larsa. In the 18th century BC, it serves as a unique testimony from the time of Hammurabi's reign. This artifact, kept in the Louvre Museum in Paris under catalog number TCL 18111, is written in the Akkadian language. Edina Edinson expresses disappointment in a letter to his mother because of the quality of the clothes she sent him. He compares his clothes to the outfits of his peers and repeatedly tries to make his mother feel guilty, hoping that she will send him a new outfit. Edina Edinson writes, "May the gods Shamash, Marduk, and Elabrad protect you for my sake. The clothes of young people here get better every year, while you let mine get worse. You made me bad clothes, even though the son of Adat and Dynamo, the son of my father's assistant, has 2 sets of beautiful clothes. Even though you are my real mother and he was only adopted, his mother loves him, but you don't love me." This letter shows that the problems and worries of teenagers have remained unchanged for thousands of years, despite changes in eras and cultures. Ancient caravan cemetery archaeologists made an important discovery in the Negev highlands, a 2,500-year-old burial site that sheds light on the trade routes of the ancient world. The artifacts found confirm that this region was an important hub connecting South Arabia, Phoenicia, Egypt, and the Mediterranean. The excavations revealed the tombs of merchants who crossed the desert, among them traders who transported frankincense, myrrh, and valuable goods. Among the findings are arrowheads from Yemen, jewelry, rare shells, and tools for processing frankincense. Especially interesting is an amulet of the Egyptian god Bes, the protector of women and children. His presence may indicate human trafficking in ancient times, which is confirmed by historical records about the Minians, merchants from Yemen who acquired women in Egypt, Gaza, and Greece. The burial site is located at a strategic crossroads of ancient routes leading through the desert. A depiction of ancient fishing. Scientists have discovered the oldest depiction of fishing, which was found on slate plates from the archaeological site of Gunnersdorf in western Germany. These images are about 15,800 years old and belong to the Magdalenian culture. The study of 46 plates found earlier was conducted using modern visualization methods. Scientists have determined that the drawings of fish and net-like patterns on the plates form a single composition depicting the use of fishing nets. 11 images of fish were identified on the plates, 8 of which are surrounded by nets. The figures are scratched onto smooth areas of the slate. First, the fish was depicted, and then the net pattern was added. The fact that the Magdalenian people ate fish is confirmed by fish bones found at their sites. Scientists believe that the nets were made from plant fibers, such as nettle. Earlier, other evidence of fishing in the Paleolithic was found, including hooks up to 42,000 years old in traps. The plates from Gunnersdorf also contain images of deer, horses, mammoths, and female silhouettes, which makes them a valuable source of knowledge about the lives of ancient people. Bayor-Bayorelyog Cemetery, Yakutia, Bayor-Bayorelyog River. You won't find shells or beautiful stones here, but you might come across ancient tusks and skulls sticking right out of the ground. This is one of the largest mammoth cemeteries on the planet. Thousands of bones, thousands of years old, hold mysteries of the past. Why did so many animals die in one place? The cemetery became known in 1947, but the first serious research only began in the 1970s. At that time, scientists suggested that mammoths came to the river in search of food, but the swampy banks couldn't support their weight, and the animals drowned. Lighter animals could go further without any problems. Over 39 years, paleontologists have extracted more than 8,500 bones from the ground, 99.5% of which belong to mammoths. Remains of at least 150 individuals have been found. But over time, smugglers and even ancient people have left their mark. A campsite was discovered nearby, where our ancestors broke mammoth bones to make tools and weapons. The latest research has shown that hunters didn't come here by chance. They deliberately drove mammoths into this area, and for 1,000 years, people regularly returned to this place to get meat and tusks. This cemetery is not just a natural phenomenon, but evidence of an ancient hunting strategy. Imagine in 1,000 years, humanity has gone from nomadic hunting to space exploration, while in the past, people could return to the same place for centuries just to survive. We will probably never achieve that kind of stability again. The master of the terracotta army. Half a century ago, a unique discovery was made. The mausoleum of the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang, was found. After years of research, the ruler's final resting place remains untouched. Scientists do not dare to disturb his peace. In 1974, when farmer Yang Jifa and his brothers were digging a well at the foot of Mount Lishan, his shovel hit something hard. That something turned out to be a fragment of a clay statue. This discovery led to the discovery of an entire collection of artifacts, but the farmer was only able to receive a symbolic 10 yuan for his find. The archaeologists who took on the case soon discovered the terracotta army, which is believed to be the guardians of the great Qin Shi Huang. But the mystery of the tomb remains unsolved, as legends say that it is filled with mercury, which the emperor considered a magical elixir. Modern studies have confirmed a high concentration of this element in the burial area. Nowadays, scientists are making plans on how to bypass ancient traps and get inside the tomb. They are considering the possibility of using muons, subatomic particles, that will help to see what is hidden deep inside the tomb without disturbing its peace. A 13th century church seal. In Suffolk County, England, Paul Henderson, together with his 10-year-old son George, went on an expedition to search the fields of Woodbridge. Arming his son with a metal detector, they didn't have to wait long. In just 10 minutes, the device gave a signal. At a depth of 12 centimeters, George discovered an unusual flat, oval-shaped object with pointed corners, which shocked his father. This item surpassed all of George's previous finds, who has been passionate about this hobby with his father since childhood. Paul, as a history enthusiast, immediately recognized the object as a medieval copper seal. It is decorated with an image of the Virgin Mary with the infant and a Latin inscription indicating its connection to the Butley Priory. After returning home, the father and son contacted the coroner, who confirmed that the seal dates back to the early 13th century and has great historical value. Later, the seal was sold at auction for £4,000 sterling, and the proceeds were divided between George and the owner of the field. Shining under the rays of the sun. During the study of an ancient burial complex in the southwest of Spain, archaeologists discovered the remains of women buried in ritual clothing adorned with thousands of beads. According to scientists, this unusual attire indicated the high status of its owners and was used in special ceremonies. The burial, which is about 5,000 years old, is located in Valencina de la Concepción, an archaeological site near Seville. The excavations revealed the largest collection of beads ever found in a single burial. In total, researchers studied more than 270,000 beads made from seashells, stone, and bones. One burial stands out in particular, the burial of the Ivory Lady. Her jewelry was probably connected to marine resources and the trade routes of the Copper Age. According to researchers, the mother-of-pearl beads glimmered in sunlight, enhancing the outfit's appearance. Scientists believe that the beads were part of tunics, skirts, or capes strung onto fabric, traces of which have been preserved. The researcher notes that making such a quantity of beads would have required a team of 10 people working for at least 7 months. The scale of the work is impressive and points to the complex craft traditions of that time. The name of Jesus Christ. While studying the remains of a man from Sudan, scientists from the University of Warsaw discovered a religious tattoo with a Christian symbol. These remains were found near the Ghazali Monastery, which dates back to the Middle Ages. A tattoo depicting the Chi Rho, a monogram of the name of Jesus Christ made from the Greek letters Chi and Rho, was found on the leg of the deceased who passed away about 1,300 years ago. In addition, the symbols Alpha and Omega were depicted nearby. This symbol first appeared in 324 AD during the reign of Emperor Constantine. Alpha and Omega are the first and last letters of the Greek alphabet, symbolizing the idea of God as the beginning and the end of everything. It's interesting the tattoo is on the right leg. As scientists say, that's where the nail may have been driven during Christ's crucifixion. This religious marking indicates the man's Christian faith. However, it has not been established whether he was a monk from the Ghazali monastery, since his remains were found in a nearby cemetery intended for local residents. The analysis found he was 35 to 50 years old when he died. At that time, this region, known as Nubia, included part of modern Egypt and Sudan, and Christianity was the main religion. Although the remains were found 7 years ago, the unique tattoo was discovered only recently, and this is only the second known case of a tattoo in medieval Nubia. The oldest 3D map in the world. Archaeologists have discovered the world's oldest 3D map, which is 13,000 years old. It was carved on quartz sandstone in the Ségognol 3 cave shelter in France, and according to researchers, represents a schematic depiction of the landscape of the Paris Basin. According to the analysis, the map shows the terrain with indications of water flow directions, which was critically important for people of the late Paleolithic. According to anthropologist Anthony Mills, for ancient people, knowledge of water flows was more important than modern concepts of distance and time. An important discovery was that Paleolithic people not only recorded the landscape, but also deliberately altered it, creating artificial channels in the sandstone to manage the flow of rainwater. The map makers deliberately opened cracks in the stone to direct water through the settlement. This proves that as early as 13,000 years ago, people had an engineering mindset and a deep understanding of hydrology. Archaeologists also suggest that the carved channels may have had mythological or ritual significance related to water and ideas about nature and life. The Band of Holes in Peru. In the Pisco Valley in Peru, there is a mysterious place known as the Band of Holes, or Monte Sierpe. This narrow strip of land is 14 to 20 meters wide and about 1.5 kilometers, or 1,500 meters long, covered with thousands of shallow pits. Their exact purpose remains a mystery, although scientists have put forward many theories. The site first became known thanks to an aerial photograph by Robert Shippey, published in the 1930s in National Geographic. For a long time, archaeologists avoided Monte Sierpe. It was only in the 1950s that Victor von Hagen studied the pits and suggested that they were empty graves, estimating their total number at about 5,000. Later, John Hyslop put forward the theory that the pits were used as storage facilities, similar to those found in other parts of Peru. Each hole is about 1 meter in diameter and up to 1 meter deep. They are made in different ways. Some are dug into the embankment, while others are surrounded by stone walls. Modern research, including a detailed map created with drones in 2015, has shown that the strip of holes consists of 5,000 to 6,000 pits divided into blocks with unique patterns. Nearby are Inca roads and the remains of storage facilities, and the pottery found indicates that they date back to the 15th century when the Incas conquered the Chincha people. Archaeologist Charles Stanish believes that the pits may have been used to measure agricultural tribute that local farmers gave to the rulers. Other scholars, such as Jean-Pierre Prosson, believe that the line of holes may be even older. He believes that the pits may have been used to store fertilizers, such as excrement. To this day, the line of holes remains one of the most mysterious archaeological discoveries in Peru. Who created it, why, and how still remains a subject of debate and ongoing research. The burial of a female shaman. On the banks of the Tigris River in Turkey, archaeologists discovered a 12,000-year-old burial that may belong to a female shaman. Her remains were found in the Neolithic settlement of Çemkahöyük. Next to her were the skeletons of wild animals, partridge wings, marten paws, goat or sheep bones, and an aurochs skull. Researchers suggest that the woman may have been a mediator between the world of humans and spirits. Shamans played an important role in ancient societies, performing rituals related to nature and supernatural forces. The burial was carefully sealed with a limestone slab, which may indicate a fear of the possible return of the deceased. There is a theory that she was considered special, or even dangerous to society. Archaeologists will conduct DNA and isotope analysis of the bones to find out who she was, what she ate, and what role she played in her tribe. A box with a combination lock. This is a unique artifact from the 12th century created by craftsmen from Iran. This exquisite object not only served as a container, but also demonstrated the outstanding engineering skills of its time. The box is equipped with 4 double dials, each of which has 16 positions. The combination of all possible settings creates an impressive number of options: 16 to the power of 8, or 4,294,967,296. This made the box extremely reliable since it was almost impossible to crack the code. The materials used to make this item include brass, gold, and silver. The ornamentation and Arabic inscription highlight the craftsmanship's sophistication and reflect the owner's high status. The box is now housed in a museum in Copenhagen, where it attracts the attention of visitors as an outstanding example of medieval Eastern technology and decorative art. The date of its creation is estimated to be around the year 1200. A bronze sword with a rock crystal hilt. This stunning bronze sword with turquoise inlay and gold trim belongs to the Warring States period in China, which spans the 4th to 2nd centuries BC. It was a time when numerous kingdoms fought for dominance and influence, and the art of war reached a high level of sophistication. This sword stood out not only for its combat purpose, but also for its incredible craftsmanship. The handle of the sword is made of rock crystal, which gives it a special elegance and makes it not only a weapon, but also a work of art. The turquoise inlay adds unique color accents, and the use of gold emphasizes the status of the owner, who was likely a member of the nobility or a high-ranking warrior. Such swords not only served as symbols of power and influence, but also demonstrated the skill of ancient Chinese blacksmiths and jewelers. Ghosts in Jamaica. Sometimes, for a place to become truly legendary, all it takes is a bit of truth and a generous portion of myths. That's exactly how the story of Rose Hall Mansion, one of Jamaica's most famous landmarks, came to be. This magnificent house, perched on a hill overlooking the sea, hides dark secrets from the past. The mansion was built by the planter John Palmer, who named it after his wife Rosa. During the plantation era, Jamaica was a place of brutal exploitation of slaves, and the fate of many of them was tied to this house. But the real legend began when John Rose Palmer became the owner of Rose Hall, together with his young wife, Annie. According to legend, she grew up in Haiti, where she was raised by a voodoo priestess. It is believed that Annie used black magic to control the slaves and get rid of her husbands. They say she killed 3 husbands and executed disobedient slaves by locking them in the mansion's dungeons. According to legend, she was killed by her own slaves and her body was bricked up under the house. Since then, the ghost of the White Witch is said to wander the mansion. Today, Rose Hall is an 18th century museum where they hold seances and tours. This atmospheric place attracts both fans of the supernatural and history enthusiasts. I'm glad you watched this video to the end, and I would appreciate it if you left a kind comment under the video. It helps the channel grow. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, everyone.